Well, welcome everyone. I know there's probably still folks joining. I can see the participant numbers just continuing to crank upwards. So I will kick us off a little bit slowly and see if we can make sure that everybody has a chance to join. But just some housekeeping items as we get kicked off here. This will be available after the presentation on the Times of Higher Ed website, and so you'll have access to this, once this presentation is over as well. Few things throughout Q&A. Please feel free to jump into the Q&A and ask questions throughout. We will have folks in the background that are able to answer a lot of the questions that come through. If you've got questions for Abe and Tiana, who are really the stars of the show, and the two folks that are here that you're probably here to listen to for the most part, I will read those questions off to Abe and Tiana and give them opportunities to answer that live in real time. However, as we get to different portions, they may jump into that Q&A chat as well and ask questions if they can. Lo and behold, we already have one here. Oh, there we go. So anyway, Q&A again will be available throughout. We will save some time at the end to tackle everything. If you do not happen to get your question answered live, we'll do everything in our power to make sure it's answered in the Q&A chat. And in worst case, we can reach out afterwards if we miss something. All right. As we kick off here, first and foremost, do a few quick introductions. My name is Steve Milner. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at K16 Solutions. Really excited to present today around migrating to a new VLE, implementing a best-in-class strategy. So I am presenting with our friends at St. Mary's University of Minnesota, a tremendous partner of ours who went through a very complex migration and archive in order to get themselves to Canvas. What you'll find throughout this presentation is K16, we are completely VLE agnostic, but this story is really going to be about St. Mary's University and their journey onto a new VLE. Everything from how they made the decision, the change management that had to take place, and then the technical transformation to get there quickly, accurately, and as efficiently as possible without disrupting students and faculty. There'll be a few poll questions throughout. These are a fun way to just sort of engage the audience and see sort of how folks are thinking about their VLE strategy. And you can kind of see from your peers as well what people are thinking about, are they thinking about moving, where they're thinking about moving, when they're thinking about moving, that kind of thing. So with that said, why don't we move to the next slide? All right, again, brief introduction from myself, Steve Milner, Chief Operating Officer at K16 Solutions. On with me today, and who I'm going to pass it to shortly, are the folks that you're really here to listen to. We've got Tiana Johnson, Assistant Vice President, Information Technology at St. Mary's University of Minnesota. And we've got Abe Hedke, Director of Instructional Technology at St. Mary's University of Minnesota. These two really spearheaded and drove this process for their respective institution. I think you'll learn a lot from them today. So, all right, let's go ahead and move forward. We'll pass it to Abe and Tiana.
All right, thank you guys for joining us today. Very happy to be here. As Steve mentioned, my name is Tiana Johnson, and I am the AVP for IT here at St. Mary's University. We are located in Minnesota, so kind of right in the Midwest. I've been here for about 10 years, and I oversee all of the help desk, user systems, the applications, and the network infrastructure for St. Mary's. So before we get started, on the next slide here, I want to tell you a little bit about our university itself. So if we want to go to the next slide. We are a university that is based on the Lasallian Catholic beliefs. We were founded well over 100 years ago, so we've got a nice long history here at St. Mary's. And we were actually based on the teachings of St. John Baptist de La Salle, who also founded the De La Salle Christian Brothers. So we're very excited. We love to be able to bring that belief and that focus forward for all of our students. We started back in 1912 just as a small local college that provided education for young men. And today we are an international university that serves women, men of every age, race, and nationality. But it's very, very important to us that we remain true to our Lasallian heritage and we meet our students wherever they are. A big part of that is really remembering that each student is unique and we treat them as a unique individual. Our size of the university is we are about 5,500 FTE. And of course, that's made up of our undergraduate students, our bachelor completions, master's, and doctorate degree students as well. And we do that all, we have campuses, physical campuses, as well as an online presence. So we continue to treat our students and to lead our students by following our mission, which is to stay enriched by the Lasallian Catholic heritage. St. Mary's University of Minnesota awakens, nurtures, and empowers learners to ethical lives of service and leadership. And we try to do that every day in our dealings with our students. And that's really what drives our university. And if we go to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit more about our migration process today. That's the whole reason we're actually here, right? So we want to talk about how we at St. Mary's got through this process. And we're going to talk a little bit more. I was the co-chair on the project, and I worked with our vice provost for online strategy and programs, which right away sets off a great start because we had really good operations or good collaboration between our operations team and our academic team. And so it made for a really great team. Abe Hedke, as the director of instructional technology, was very key to this process, as he did a lot of the work, a lot of the hands-on, right, working with our faculty. And it was a great project to do with Abe. So I believe now we have a poll question.
We do. Thanks, Tiana. So first poll question we want to kick off is, which VLE are you currently using? Now, obviously there's different VLEs in different markets across the world. So hopefully we were able to capture as many as the relevant ones as possible. There's a limit to how many we can put up on the poll. So, if it's other, it's other, but we thought we captured the vast majority here that's at least used on a, at scale. So Moodle, Blackboard Learn, obviously Sakai, It's Learning, OpenLMS, which is a platform of Moodle, Canvas, Brightspace. All right, so let's give it another 5 seconds. Okay, let's see where we landed here. Be interesting to see what everybody is on. All right, large population on Moodle and Blackboard. Fair amount of folks on Sakai, and just a handful on Canvas and Brightspace. So exciting stuff. All right, Tiana, back to you.
And I believe I'm actually going to pass it right to Abe.
Perfect.
Thank you, Tiana. Thank you, Stephen. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Abram Hedke. I go by Abe, and as Tiana and Stephen mentioned, I'm the Director of Instructional Technology for St. Mary's. I've been here for just over 2 years, and this was my initial project when I came into the university, was to facilitate the migration, but from our 2 legacy VLEs. I'm gonna get that wrong all day. From our 2 legacy VLEs into our new one. And I think before we get into all those details, the piece that we want to talk about continually is who we are, right? And what is our story, and where do we come from? And as Tiana mentioned, a bit of our history and a bit of our focus, that really is who we are. We have 4 campuses across, 3 campuses across the state of Minnesota in the Midwest, but we also have the online campus, which is international. And that really sets us as a leader in online education. And in that, we have to continually be striving to make sure the systems we engage our learners in are 21st century technologies and are going to help them develop the skills they need to go from where they are in school into the job field. And this charge, this idea of being an online leader and a leader in higher education continually strives us to take us where we need to go. And the next slide, if you can advance that, it really shares the priorities that we focused on as we came into the migration. So we really had to look at who we were as an institution. And at this point, we, again, as I mentioned, we 4 campuses that were, not to say completely siloed or completely compartmentalized, but they definitely didn't intersect the way that we wanted them to, or intersect as well as we wanted them to. So this was a great opportunity for us to bring in multiple pieces from multiple areas into now one. So we think of one university and having unified departments and unified structures and goals. The same had to be for our learning systems as well, for our VLEs. And a VLE isn't just the Canvas or the Blackboard or the Moodle. It's also what your video content provider, or it's perhaps your plagiarism similarity detection system. You have all these learning environments that need to also be aligned. They need to be underneath one university. And we were unique enough to have 2 different VLEs and 2 different video systems and 2 different plagiarism detection softwares. That's too many systems, right? So this was a great opportunity for us to follow our president and our board of directors to bringing this into one university. And in doing so, not only were we able to streamline processes, but we were also able to really put our learners first, right? And say, who is our end user, right? It's not the faculty, right? It's not the staff who keep the university running on all 4 campuses. It is our students, right? So what is that student experience? How do we elevate that? How do we make sure that they are first and foremost in this process? And that was a great piece that Tiana and her counterpart who led the LMS task force, the VLE task force, they did wonderfully. They continually rooted us in who's our focus, right? And what are we trying to do? And that last check, online course consistency to optimize the experience, was really our day-to-day focus. Before we go a little further into our story, into what we did, I think, Steve, we have another poll question.
Yes. All right. So if you are joining this webinar, there's a very good chance that you are considering a migration to a new VLE or LMS. So that's the question. If we want to pop that up, there we go. So this is, I believe this is the same poll question. It's showing which VLE are you currently using? Oh, never mind. Scroll down. There we go. All right. Second poll question. If you scroll down a little bit, which VLE do you need to migrate to? Again, we don't have every VLE or LMS on the planet, but the vast majority of them. So again, it just sort of gives everybody an idea of where people are thinking about going here in this situation. So give it maybe another 5 or 10 seconds. All right, let's have a look at the results, see where we landed here. All right, looks like a fair amount of folks looking to move to Moodle, Blackboard Learn. I think maybe we had some folks clicking on the first poll question, but not sure. So either way, looks like a lot of folks considering a move to Moodle or Blackboard, which is the vast majority. And then we've got some folks thinking about Canvas, OpenLMS, and Brightspace. So very interesting. All right, Abe, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And Tiana is going to lead us into our next section.
Perfect.
All right. So when we started looking at our VLE, we actually put together a pretty aggressive timeline. We started back in September of 2019, and we pretty much decided at that point we needed a single VLE, no more of this 2 double application stuff. And so we created a great team that we'll talk a little bit more coming up too here, but it was really created out of both faculty and staff. And so we were able to get feedback from a lot of different people. That was really important to us. And I want to emphasize, along with Abe, where he was talking, that it was about making things better for the students. In order to make things better for the students, we really needed to make sure that we were getting input from everybody, input from feedback from students, input from staff and faculty who assisted with registering for applications and things and programs, as well as getting information from the faculty and how they use the system. What are they using? How do they make it easier for their students to get the information out of it that they need? So we started in September of 2019. With that, we created an RFP process. So we kind of started from scratch, created that RFP, sent it out to vendors, got feedback, did demos. People actually came on site. We invited our community to come and listen and watch and ask questions. Through that process, we ended up choosing Canvas. It turned out very well for us. So just within about 6 months there, from September to April, we chose Canvas. And we actually had some of our courses were up already in August. So another, within a year, we basically were able to get some of our courses moved over to Canvas. Now with this, of course, we had to transfer all of the data. We had to transfer things. So it was a pretty small group to start with. But we did get the beginnings of it so that people could see it. They could see the concept. That proof of concept is so important. And to be able to get more and more people on board with it and moving forward. So we continued with the migration for the next year. We brought in the other VLE, as we had mentioned, we had 2 of them. So, we kind of started just moving over a few courses from one, and getting everything over from that second VLE kind of took a little while, but everything was 100% moved over by January of 2022. And so we were able to completely sunset that. During that process, we worked very closely with K16 to help move the data over, but then also to create a great archive of it so that if we ever needed to go back to anything, we're able to go back and get that information very, very easily. And it all went way smoother than one could actually imagine. Coming from somebody who works in the IT department, they always say it's so easy. But this process of moving our data over actually really was. It went really well. So if you want to go to the next slide.
Hey, Tiana.
Yeah.
We had if you don't mind just jumping in here, we had a quick question that came up from someone that said, how did you go about getting input of students? If you want to just tackle that real briefly right here.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is always the challenge, right? What do you do to bring in the students to get them to participate? Of course, we tried the food method, trying to bring the students in. Yeah, we'll provide food, come visit. That sort of worked. But really what we had to do is we partnered with some of our groups in our undergrad campus. So we brought in our student senate, we brought in our res hall directors. We also took advantage of some of our help desk student workers. And we said, hey, what do you guys think of this? Watch the video, listen to what the demo has to say. What system do you like better? And then we actually sent out surveys after each of the demos. So we had 3 on-site demos from 3 different vendors. And we did surveys to the students and said, give us your feedback. And so it was tough. I'm not going to lie. It's very hard to get feedback from students, but it was very important to us. So we took the time and the effort to make sure that we reached out to them and got as much feedback from them as we could. A lot of them said they were just excited about the possibilities. And so some of our questions that we had in our survey were focused around what is most important to you when we look at a new solution. And that's coming up actually in I think the next slide maybe. So I'll touch on that a little bit more shortly.
Great. We'll keep rolling. Yeah, there's a few other questions for you, but I think some of them will probably be answered as you go. So we'll let you keep rolling, and we'll go from there. We'll make sure for all of you posting questions in the chat. Thank you. We will get to them. Go ahead, Tiana.
All right, sounds good. So as I mentioned earlier, it was really important for us when we picked our task force that we had staff and faculty involved. And there you can see a picture of our core group that worked together, and we met regularly. We met every week. We had a very dedicated team that stuck with us through this entire process. After we chose the selection of which VLE we were going to go with, our team did change up a little bit because commitments and time and everything gets to be tough. But we had a really good core group that stuck with through the entire selection process. And it really helped us to evaluate our solutions based on the ability to use it on a portable or a mobile device. Is it easy for somebody to pick up their cell phone and get the information they need? Is it easy to quickly add to the discussion board? A lot of that was things that both faculty and students were looking for. So we had a really nice mix of people to be able to bring that oversight together. If you want to go to the next slide. This is some of the feedback that we got from our students and our faculty and staff as we were collecting that. They said the most important VLE feature was that it needed to be user-friendly. So it needed to be easy to use. Mobile-friendly, as I mentioned, was the second most important. They need to be able to do it wherever they are. Especially for our graduate students, they're the untraditional students, the non-traditional students. If they are in between work and home, maybe picking up their kids, doing whatever life brings them to do, they need to be able to get on their device, get some homework done quick, and move on. So being mobile friendly and being where they are at was very important to them. For the implementation side of it, faculty said it was very important for the data transfer and the time to prepare so that their stuff was moved over. They had time to get familiar with it, get trained on the system, and that they knew how to do it. They also said that communication was really important. When am I going to be using the new system? How do I do this? How do I get help on the new system if I don't know how to do something? So those were all things that we really tried to consider very carefully when we did this. And I think one key thing here is when we talk about that data transfer, it was very important for the faculty that they didn't have to necessarily start from scratch. And K16 was really able to help us with bringing over their data, bringing over their course sets, so that that information was a starting point for them to be able to get back up and get ready in the new system. We also found that the usage of our VLE differed among user groups and campuses. Not everybody used the system in the same way. Some people use it very heavily. Everything was done in the system. And some people just posted their syllabus and that was it. So it was really important for us to get a better understanding of how each individual used it, so that when we moved everything over, everything still worked for them. The majority of our people we found did feel proficient in their current VLE. So we, as we mentioned, had two. We had Blackboard and we had Engage. But they did feel comfortable using it. And we wanted to make sure that with that transition, we provided enough tools that they could feel comfortable as quickly as possible in the new Canvas system. So we relied on our surveys quite a bit, and we used that information on both the RFP and the overall selection criteria. So we really took into consideration what our people said about the system. It was really important to our university. So, and if you want to go to the next slide. When we went out for our RFP process, we looked at a lot of different vendors. We settled on sending it to these 6. We felt at the time these were both the ones that we were currently using, but then also some of the up and coming options. And we wanted to reach out to them and see how they could partner with St. Mary's. It was important too that we just didn't pick a solution, but we wanted to pick a solution that was important for St. Mary's to have a partner to go with long term. And so in that process with our RFP, we got results back from 4 different folks or 4 different companies. And ultimately we chose to go with Canvas because they really felt like they met a lot of the needs and the choices that we were looking for in those surveys. They had a lot of new technologies out there. They reached the students. They had great ability to go with mobile platforms. They integrated with other systems that we needed and seemed to be a really good fit for us. So we went with the 4 choices, but then we narrowed it down to Canvas. If we go to the next slide, we're going to go to another poll question. So Steve.
All right, I think we've gone ahead and fixed the glitch here. So this should come across properly. All right, do you need to migrate VLE platforms? If so, when? So this is sort of looking at the urgency here around timelines people are thinking about. Is this something you're thinking about doing here in the next 3 months? Is this something you're thinking about doing here in the next half year? Or are you looking 7+ months out? Or potentially maybe you're just trying to gather some information and not really looking to migrate anytime soon. So I think this will give some interesting feedback on how people are thinking about the timeline specifically. So we'll give it a couple of minutes here, or a couple of seconds here. All right, why don't we go ahead and take a look at how we landed here. All right, so looks like vast majority are 7+ months or so. You've got some here 0 to 3 and 4 to 6. We've got a handful of folks, 25% of the group that needs to get this done in the next 6 months. So I think Abe and Tiana, you'll have some insight on how to make sure you can get that done. So very interesting. Thank you. All right, Tiana, Abe, back to you all.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So on the next slide, you're going to see some more reasons on why we chose Canvas as our new single VLE. All right, so I'm going to talk about the left side, and then I'll talk about the right side of this image. And really, Canvas became the right choice. I want to jump ahead a couple semesters of usage. We've been giving more surveys to students as we've been using Canvas, and it has proven to be the right choice for us. In consistent feedback from them, we are hearing the things that they asked for. They asked for an easy to use system. They asked for mobility, and that's the continual feedback we get now after surveying in Canvas after 1 semester or 2 full semesters. It's consistent feedback knowing that we made the right choice. And one of the great things that we were able to do with Canvas is that it really checked all the boxes that we were looking for. Before we had 2 VLEs that could do some things in different ways. As mentioned, we had various recording systems and various, too many, right? Too many systems. So bringing it all into one again was the right choice for us. So let's talk about the left side here, where we have accessibility, lecture capture, and plagiarism and similarity. These 3 things really became. These 3 are other learning systems. These are other VLEs, if you will, in the sense of you could have to go to them to do something else. And in our legacy VLEs, you had to go to another page to find the video, to do the plagiarism detection, to do other work, to get systems of accessibility. But with Canvas, it was all kind of rolled into one. So our students and our faculty, when they're engaging in the VLE, they're using these other tools, but not realizing they're even using them because they're embedded so well into the VLE. And that was one really important thing for us. So for the question that came up earlier in the Q&A of why do we choose Canvas, it's because we could integrate other systems, other important learning environments without people having to leave Canvas, without people having to go to another page or remember another set of credentials. Obviously, using single sign-on has really been helpful with all of this. Now we switch to the, to the right side of the screen. As we were making the move to Canvas, we were discussing our new VLE. We thought this is an opportunity for us again to lean on the goals and our priorities as an institution and redesign things. Before, in our legacy systems, Blackboard and Engage, we didn't have consistency in the UX design, right, and that user experience. So we were able to design a course template for every single course as we moved into Canvas, and K16 was able to help us with that. We didn't have to touch each and every course to apply it. It was able to be done during migration. We'll talk more about that in future slides. But we took this time as an opportunity to really think about what's the user experience, what's it going to look like, what's their landing page. And if anyone's familiar with Quality Matters, this is definitely a main component of the Quality Matters initiative that we are slowly taking on through our migration. Canvas on the go. We talked about our students, our learners wanting to be able to be mobile, and this is a complete piece that's wonderful. In fact, in our last business review with Canvas, we have on average over 40% of our users using the mobile app. And I'm not talking about the Chrome browser on a tablet. I'm talking about the actual Canvas app. So being able to be truly mobile and be able to use that to upload assignments, engage with their faculty or peers, even for faculty to be able to grade work, we're seeing a great amount of use on the go. And then of course with Canvas, we opted in for their tier 1 support. So we also have 24/7 dedicated support. When you have 3 physical campuses and an online campus that's teaching and learning and engaging at any point in the day, your typical 9 to 5 support hours don't work anymore, right? You have learners who are doing homework at 10 p.m. or 2 a.m. Because of where they live or because of when their life, their family allows for it. So we needed to be able to support them at any time of the day as well. So that having that 24/7 support was really essential for us, knowing that they would always have an opportunity to get the help they need in the learning system, in the learning environment, whenever they needed it. Let's move on to the onto the next slide and talk about what K16 really did for us. So this slide I could talk about probably for over an hour if I had the opportunity. We don't have that time today, so I'll be brief. But again, the big thing about this is when we chose Canvas and we decided to optimize the course structure and bring in various other learning environments and everything, we also figured out, wow, we can't do this ourselves, right? We can't move all this content ourselves. And I remember a conversation when I was just coming into the project and Tiana saying, yeah, there's this company called K16 and they can do this. They can move everything, and they're going to apply the template we've designed. And again, the VLE task force spent a long time developing that template, so it was ready to go. And she said they're going to apply it to every course for us, and they're going to move all the content. And I was like, okay, sure, I guess, right? Just because having done other migrations before, they never go as smooth as you want them to. So, and I say that because it can be daunting, right? When you're trying to move thousands of courses and thousands of, and hundreds of hours of content, it can be really, really tough. So, by choosing and selecting K16 to work with, we were able to bring in all that content from both VLEs on our own timeline. And one of the great things about it was they met our needs. They met our consistent needs throughout the entire process. They weren't, there never was a piece where we had deadlines from them to make. Really, it was our deadlines that we got to choose, and and that we are able to customize, if you will, our own migration. And one thing I kind of skipped over is where did we get hooked up with K16, right? It wasn't that they were walking around handing out business cards. It was because of the VLE we chose. When we worked with Canvas and we said we have a lot of content, we need to move it from 2 different systems, and we need to think about archiving. Do you have anyone to work with? They presented us with K16, and that was just a perfect relationship set up right away. So being able to leverage those connections that came with our new VLE was really, really helpful for us. Let's see here. As we look through at this slide, being able to move from 2 different systems into one sounds like it might be somewhat of an easy piece, but really is quite logistically crazy. You're navigating multiple batches of courses at different times from different programs, always trying to make sure that the next group coming through is getting everything they need. And K16 was able to do that. On the call today, Sam's here. I can see his face on my slides or on my screen, and Sam was our go-to, right? Sam was our main point of contact, and he and his team did that work for us. We would send them batches of 500 plus courses at a time, and then within a week or less than, mostly, it was all of a sudden in our new system, and we could go through our final cleanup. And that was a great piece. That customized migration ended up being so easy for us because they did so much of that work. They did so much of that cleanup, that structure. They applied that template that we wanted to put into every course without us having to do a single thing. And that speed and accuracy piece is really helpful. And I'm going to talk more about it when we get to archiving, but K16 was truly able to move mountains. And I'm going to say this briefly, and I'll touch on it later. They archived over 20,000 courses for us in a weekend. And we'll talk about that on the next slide. But I'm thinking, as we've talked about this and prepped for this, Tiana, I think you had a good story to share here.
Yeah, I do just want to share that, you hear these stories like, oh yeah, you don't need IT help with this. You don't need IT to do this. There's no work. And it always comes back that there's always IT work that's needed. And I just want to really give a shout out to K16 here, because it was as easy as Abe said for us to, once everything was set up, we provided them with a spreadsheet and we said, this is the next batch of courses that we needed to move. And they took it from there. And the next thing we knew, it was done. The real only IT work that was needed is we needed to tell them, here's where our courses are located. Like, for example, coming from our Blackboard course or our Blackboard VLE system, this is where the information's held. We had to help with that connectivity, and they took it from there. I have never worked on a process that was that straightforward. And I can't give K16 again enough kudos for being able to take that and just run with it. And it was a very smooth, very easy process that relieved a ton of resources from the IT side because they were able to do that. So I really want to emphasize how smooth that worked for us.
Thank you, Tiana.
And as we move to that next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about what we got with K16 Solutions, right? So we already talked about this flexible, move at your own pace migration, but it's truly an important piece. Never once did we have deadlines from them we had to make. It was our own deadlines that we had to achieve, and then they would move things over. And every time we sent a batch of 500 plus courses, Sam would say, "Oh, sure, we'll have that for you by next week or in 2 weeks," but it always came back earlier. They're always many days, 3-4 days ahead of the schedule from what they said. So we are always able to move forward on our timelines. The archive solution, I'm going to come back to in a moment here. Let's talk about that customized course cleanup again. Coming from 2 different VLEs, one that had a very good structure through our online programs, and the other one that was very much just kind of, to use a phrase, the Wild West, and that it could have been a course could have looked like anything, right? We were able to funnel that into one new setup, one new style of what it was going to look like, that template, even the structure. They were able to just map, if it's Blackboard and it's coming from here, it's going to here in Canvas. If it's coming from Engage in this point, it's coming to this area in Canvas. So everything is just kind of shuffled in together to the point where when my team got back all the courses, the cleanup we had to do was very, very minimal. It was very, very easy for us to do, which let then us get those courses back in the faculty's hands so they could go through final preparation before they teach the course for the first time in their system. This is so important because this let us focus on other things like training faculty, like putting together student resources. Instead of having to be consistently cleaning courses and changing all this content around, we were able to focus on the students and the faculty and putting together training programs to make sure they were ready to go. So K16 really just carried everything and allowed us to focus on that learner-centric piece. Also, the support that came through it was amazing. Not that I had Sam's cell phone at all, but you know, the immediacy of their business, the immediacy of their support was phenomenal. And that's going to jump me back to archive solution. So as we migrated, we then realized, well, because of, you know, the way we've done things as a university, we need to have, you know, multiple years archived. It ended up being over 20,000 courses. And we were shutting down one of our legacy systems it was a hard deadline. And through paperwork and through some legal pieces, that got jumped ahead by an entire month. And when that came to us, we called K16, which we'd already decided to go with for archive. And we said, we need the archive like yesterday. This was, I believe, it was a Thursday. And because the next Monday, our legacy's gone because of the contractual issues that came up. And they said, sure, no problem. And there you go. Monday morning, our archive was set up. They moved 20,000 courses in over a weekend, in just a weekend, which is phenomenal. And we've been able to maintain that now for the last year and a half, coming up on 2 years. So truly the archive solution was quickly done, but it's also wonderful because it's a one-click archive. As we've needed to go back to that archive and grab courses again, it's find the course, click sync, and all of a sudden it shows up in Canvas for us now. And when it shows up in that format again, so we don't have to do much cleaning. There's a template, it's all organized. So the archive solution really is a one-click, ready-to-go solution that keeps your content safe, has the historical grade data that you may need, but also can transfer back to your new VLE in one click. And that's been just a big piece for us. So what we got with K16 was truly a full package. And I believe as we move into their piece of the day, we do have one more poll.
Thanks, Abe. All right. So last poll question is, do you have a plan for how you will archive your historical course content and student data? And the reason we ask this is it's very interesting. What we've found over time is a lot of institutions that are planning to make this move will start to dive into the migration and all of a sudden realize, oh, I've got to retain a bunch of this historical or all of this historical student data for whatever it may be. We've seen 1 year all the way up to, in certain cases, 10 years, right, where this data needs to be retained. And institutions, have to try and figure out how they're going to handle that right away. And the most common way people have done that is left a read-only access option to their legacy LMS live, which is incredibly costly to do so. Really an interesting solution, something that needs to be thought about, before you complete this move. So, how are you planning on it? You could legacy LMS. There's cold storage. There's not sure or not applicable. So. All right, let's see how this poll shook out. All right, so it looks like a handful, well, vast majority say not sure. If you fall into this category, this is constant. This is what we see all the time. So you are definitely not alone, as you can see here in the poll. But I think just something to ensure that you are thinking critically about before you make that move is, what am I going to do with all this historical student data in the legacy LMS?
And Steve, if I can jump in here real quick for 1 second.
Please, Ed.
For us choosing K16, it wasn't just the fact that they could move it and it was a one-click system. Their archive solution came in considerably less than every other group we looked at. When we looked at our legacies to do it for us or other systems, K16 solution was considerably, and when I say considerably, it was thousands of dollars less than the next closest one, which for us being a small university where budgets are tight, we don't always have the big paychecks we want to have for things like this, right? We can't just cut those blank checks. That was a big selling point for us, was that they could hold it. It could be a one-click system, but it was so affordable.
Thanks, Abe. I appreciate that. All right, next slide. All right, I'm going to dive in here for a bit now. I know we've still got a handful of questions that are coming through the chat. Some of those, actually the vast majority of those, Tiana and Abe, are directed at you two. If you don't mind jumping in there and taking a look at some of those while I go through this portion and seeing what you can answer throughout that process, that would be great. And if not, no worries, we'll get to it verbally at the end. I just want to make sure we got through everybody's question throughout this process. So, Jason, next slide, if you don't mind. All right. So again, I just wanted to get into a little bit about who we are, right? We and really where we're doing business and where we're partnering with institutions globally. This is the first time we've done a webinar, that's really directed at that, sort of European and international market, really EMEA market, right? Seen a lot of participants from all over the world in here, which is really exciting to see. And this is something that we have experience working with clients, again, across the globe. We've done deals in Europe. We've partnered with schools in South Africa. We have a bunch of active migrations going on right now in Australia. Obviously all over North America, Latin America. So we have experience working really all over the globe with our partner institutions, our partner schools. We are on, just a quick note too, we're on Amazon Web Services and the microservices side. So when we do these migrations, we can spin up instances really anywhere in the world. So your data is never going to leave your region either, which, we are very, very in tune with GDPR specifically, and want to ensure that we are fully compliant with that as well. So just a quick side note on that. All right, system migration is what you've heard about, today from Abe and Tiana, and that's exactly what it is. It's the ability to move one VLE to another seamlessly and quickly. Content replace, really interesting solution as well. This is more for, well, there's a lot of different applications for this. It's really replacing links when you've moved between, for example, video platforms, Kaltura to Panopto or Yuja or whatever it may be. We're able to go back in and replace all those links and make that usable very rapidly. And then the last component is data archiving, which Abe spoke on. So again, when you make that move, all that historical student data in those legacy courses has got to go somewhere. And if you do put that in cold storage for what it's worth, you're going to need a user interface for that to be able to find it. And so I think oftentimes people plan on putting it there and then realize, wow, this is not a solution that's going to work. From a cost perspective, this is something that we wanted to ensure was usable for anyone. And we priced it accordingly. So we use the same technology, system migration. We pull all that content into our platform, our user interface, and to Abe's points, one-click access. You find whatever you need, and if for some reason you forgot, to migrate a course during that mass migration, it's there, and you can click that and move that in. Next slide. All right, so traditional ways to do this. We just wanted to touch on how this was done in the past before we brought this solution to market. So first was white glove. This is essentially just outsourcing it to an organization that'll just sit there and do it manually. Extremely expensive, extremely time consuming, and it's just labor intensive, right? It's sitting there and copying and pasting and moving content from one VLE to another. And not only is it expensive, time consuming, and labor intensive, but it's prone to mistakes. You're not, when you don't automate it, you're not going to get, especially when you've got multiple people working on a project, right? You're not going to get that consistency that you may otherwise want. You're going to spend an extreme amount of money doing that as well. So then next is there's the bulk migration, common cartridge. This is going to require almost as much time as as doing it yourself would. The manual intervention and revision is incredibly time consuming and incredibly labor intensive, because you're just not going to get stuff coming across in a one-for-one pairing. So there's going to be a lot of work that needs to take place afterwards. And then lastly, obviously, there's the DIY, the do it yourself, the copy and paste, right? Maybe schools in the past have elected to hire up a bunch of student workers or dump it on faculty, but it's incredibly time consuming when you do that. Again, labor intensive, and there's just a ton of soft and hard costs associated with trying to do it yourself as well. So really what we've set out to try and do is make this the most cost-effective and efficient way to go about migration. And at this point, I think right now we've got over 200 migrations going actively around the world. This is really sort of become the gold standard in how you do this, but without the gold standard price in how you do this. So we understand that with this solution, you've got a variety of different budgets and a variety of different sizes of schools. We've done everything from small K-12 or community colleges, in the United States, all the way up through, massive institutions across the globe. And everything in between. So there's really no, specific target market for a solution like this. Next slide. All right, yeah, just to share, back to the point, I guess, of the variety in institutions that we've helped and where they've gone, right? University of Newcastle in Australia, that was a Blackboard move to Canvas. UCLA, that was a Moodle to Canvas move. They were on-prem Moodle to Canvas. So we were able to move them over to Canvas and then archive all their historical student data. And that was actually an interesting one because being on-prem, they said, well, we've already got this data on our servers. May make sense just to leave it on there. They conducted a pretty in-depth study and came back and said, you know what? Not only is it going to cost us less to not dedicate those resources to those servers and just shut it down, it's also going to be a way more efficient way to do this and to be able to connect it into our new Canvas instance. Makes all the sense in the world. So they elected to do both there. Heriot Watt in Scotland, UK deal, that was Blackboard to Canvas. Sakai to Canvas, right? That's a really challenging one to do manually. It really can't be done manually. There's no APIs there. Our technology still allows us to go grab that content and do it seamlessly. You've seen multiple, to Abe's point right there, institution had multiple VLEs. Same situation with Rutgers here in the US. That was Sakai and Blackboard consolidating onto Canvas. We've done clients that were moving from Blackboard Original that wanted to move and upgrade to Blackboard Ultra. Gallaudet University was one of those. Wichita State was another one of those. So we really have the ability to go in any direction, right? MUSC, that's the Medical School of South Carolina, that was in Moodle to Brightspace. So again, we're totally agnostic. Wherever you've decided the best VLE for your institution is, it's our job to make sure we get you there as effectively, efficiently, and as cost-effective as humanly possible. Next slide, please. All right, so really, what is system migration and who are we integrated with? So I think this has been fairly well explained to this point, but again, it's really an automated content migration service. We utilize APIs, and then we have some other proprietary methods that we utilize in order to move that course content from one VLE to another. It's really important to, again, mention that we are going to retain your course structure, your quizzes, your tests, question pools, LTIs. All those critical components are going to come across efficiently. Who are we integrated with? Well, as you can see below, Blackboard, Moodle, Genzabar. Some people, we've gotten comments before, hey, isn't Genzabar in SIS? It is, but they also have an LMS that we are integrated with. Sakai, D2L, Canvas, then other open LMS. Then you've got your Kalturas, Panoptos, and Users of the world, right? That are the video platforms. And then lastly, Schoology. So we are able to tackle most platforms. That said, if you're on a platform that isn't on this list, don't hesitate to reach out. Every one of these required us to do somebody first. And so we've really figured out how to do these integrations very, very well. And if it makes sense, then we're happy to discuss doing that integration and still making that move for you. All right, next slide. All right, so again, why system migration? Well, I touched on this. First, incredibly fast. It's incredibly accurate, and it's extremely affordable. So I don't, in the interest of time, I don't need to necessarily beat this slide up too much, but those are really the three things. If you look at what we've done so far, we've moved over 1.7 million courses just over the last couple of years, working with over 130 higher education institutions. That's just who we've finished. Like I said, we've got over 200 active, migrations as we speak. 6,000 course transfers per week. Abe mentioned some of the speed and veracity that we moved with his institution. That's on average, right? Is sort of where we land, right? We don't want to crash anybody's servers on either side, so we'll go really at the pace that makes sense. But once you've selected, what you want these transformations to look like and how you want that content to land, we're going to move at a fairly rapid pace. And then savings. This is really what we hear from institutions, right? It's not an apples to apples comparison necessarily. They're saying when we looked at this and dove into what this was going to cost us, and however you evaluate that, whether that's the soft cost of the faculty or scale out student workers or, outsourcing it, that this process drives a massive cost savings. And one thing also that's important to note on the cost savings side is it's not just about the dollars and cents associated with the actual move. It's also how quickly you can shut down that legacy VLE. Oftentimes in the past, we've seen institutions that have to leave that legacy VLE live for 2 or 3 years while they go through this long, arduous transformation to their new VLE. So you're paying for both. In this scenario, you can move relatively quickly, archive everything, and then shut that old VLE down. So you're not you're not paying for another year and another year and another year during this process. So there are significant cost savings as well when you look at it that way. Next slide, please. All right, what is data archiving? So again, I've touched on this, but you've got to do something with this historical student data. If a student comes back and challenges a grade down the road and says, you say I got, a B, I say I got an A, you need to be able to have, all the content throughout that course or data throughout that course showcasing, where that grade came from. And if you shut down that legacy LMS without archiving that somewhere, then 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a problem for you. So archiving in the most effective way possible. Again, we use that same technology to go grab everything with all of these old courses. We pull that onto our platform, and then it's one click. So really what we suggest doing is looking at, what courses are you going to be actively teaching? A lot of institutions will go back maybe 2 or 3 years, and that's what they end up migrating. And then they archive, the 5, 6, 7 years behind that, or whatever it may end up being. So we can help you think through that. Every institution is going to be a little bit different, but that's really what this solution is here to do, is ensure that once you've made that move, you are completely done with whatever your legacy, VLE is. You're able to just shut that down, stop paying for that, and move on with a fully integrated solution between your archive and your new VLE. Next slide, please. All right, again, far more cost effective. Abe, alluded to that. When you look at what this is going to cost you to do any other way, we're confident in the fact that it's going to be most cost effective. Of course, content availability, really, really easy access, and student data accessibility. So you're going to have the ability to view, review, and then print it as needed. What do you get, right? What content is captured? Really everything: enrollment information, student submissions, discussions and replies, file attachments, assignments, quizzes, feedback, gradebook. You're going to get everything you could possibly need for this, and you're not going to be left with any old data that you're missing for some reason. Next slide, please. All right, I want to kick it back to Abe and Tiana for lessons learned and advice for others.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Sorry, I was just trying to get through some questions there. So hopefully people are seeing the responses come through back through the Q&A. So just talking through numbers 1 and 2 real quick here. Having a task force, a VLE task force, was essential. If that wasn't there, if this was just one office, one department trying to move through a migration, we would not have had the success and the continued success that we've had so far. So communication and transparency at all levels are very important. So thinking of it like a 360 perspective. As Tiana mentioned earlier, we surveyed faculty and students and staff to help us figure out which VLE to go with. As we've been using Canvas and the other connected systems, we're continually surveying faculty and students about their experience to figure out what's working, what's not working, and how can we address it. And how can we continue to move forward? So while we launched our first real big semester in the spring of 21, after a few months of migration, and then kept migrating from there, we're now looking to see how can we advance even further with grade sync between our storage systems in Canvas. So consistency, transparency, ongoing is just a big piece. And from that K16 lens, because that heavy lifting was done on their end, we were able to focus on that. We were able to continually meet and keep that student perspective in mind. In terms of number 2, real quick, again, it really just connects to transparency, but asking questions and bringing people to the table. Everyone has a thought, everyone has an opinion, and too often we don't get the opportunity to share those. So being intentional and asking people to give feedback, to give opinions on which VLE they like better, or how's it going in their current semester is vital. And we have to keep in mind that when it comes to the VLE, that user group has to always be on the learners and has to be consistent.
I want to jump in here on number 3, and I think that the opportunities to kind of buck the traditional approaches. And I feel so often in universities, we feel like we're special, we're unique, we need to do this ourselves. And I think this was really important that we didn't have to do it ourselves. We were able to partner with a great company to be able to take a lot of the work off of us. And we ended up with a great product that was really unique for each of our courses, each of our faculty. And to be able to share that workload was really key in that timeline that we had to get everything switched over. And I know in the timeline, it kind of looks like it was almost over the course of 3 years, but as Abe said, mentioned, we had the first ones up in the beginning, and then we had a big move over, and then just kind of those last few, because you know how it always takes a lot to tie up those little loose ends and those last few courses coming over. So it took a little longer in that sense. But the big mass move of everything was over very quickly. And so being able to use a partner for that, because we didn't have to do it ourselves, was really, really key. And it also kind of shows on number 4 there that we can move fast and maintain our quality, because we had a template. We said, we're going from here, we move our stuff here, and it was consistent and it was clean. And we were able to make that transition very quickly and meet all of our timelines, meet our time frame that we wanted to get everything completed in.
All right, well, that puts us right with about 3 minutes to go. We've gotten through the vast majority, I think, of the questions in the QA with the chat. So I don't see any open questions here at this point. But given the fact that we do have 3 minutes left, I'm happy to answer anything else that comes up. We've got 46 questions that were answered in the chat. So hopefully we got to everything and didn't leave any stone unturned. If you have additional questions, just again, relative to anything, relative to how Abe and Tiana thought about change management or the project plan or whatever it may be, doesn't have to be related to K16, just really anything. I know Tiana and Abe would be happy to field any questions as well down the road, so feel free to reach out. If you have any questions for us directly, you can go to K16Solutions.com. We respond very, very quickly to anything that comes through the website. And we can go from there. Question came up, will the Q&A be shared afterwards? I am not sure on that, actually. That's a really good question. Will we get a copy of the questions answers in chat? Okay. Only the host and panelists can see them, I believe. Let me see if I can find out. Will the QA be available? If it is not, and you have a question that was not answered here, again, feel free to reach out directly to K16 or to Abe or Tiana, and we'll make sure that we get those answers to you. I believe most of the answers, I thought some of the answers were answered openly so everyone could see, but potentially not, because it gives us the option, by the way, to type an answer or to answer it privately. So you should hopefully be able to see it. Okay, it says the recording will be shared, but not the Q&A. So again, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out directly, and we'll make sure that we get those answered for you, because we do not want anybody to walk away from this without all the information that they wanted. Abe and Tiana, if you don't have access to their emails, then feel free to reach out to us, and we can connect you with Abe and Tiana and make sure that we get anything answered. So few people saying in the chat here, you can download all the Q&As through Zoom. I don't know, I can't verify or not verify that, but thank you for sending that out, Hisham. And we'll go from there. So unfortunately, it looks like we are out of time. So really appreciate everybody joining, and hopefully we can talk soon. Thanks, everybody.